Imagine driving by a $4 million mansion in Calabasas that's now listed for about 1.8 million. The pool is still sparkling. You'll see which cities are getting hit the hardest and why even a 50% discount might still be a risky move. And that's not including extra policies for earthquakes and floods, if you can even get them, which pushes the total cost to protect your home way up. Water is another major issue. After several dry years, both groundwater and reservoir supplies are under a lot of strain. Some wineries and rural homes have had to truck in water at a huge daily cost just to stay open. So for a buyer who's looking at a property with a vineyard or a lot of landscaping, having a secure water source for the future isn't just an environmental concern, it's a financial one. Maintenance and infrastructure problems can also be a big deal in these rural luxury spots. Think long private roads and old wells, or septic systems, in older homes that all need constant investment. And as interest rates have climbed, the number of buyers who are willing to finance a huge purchase on top of hefty yearly running costs has gone down. Napa definitely still offers beauty, culture, and a one-of-a-kind lifestyle for folks who can afford it. But its luxury housing market is now tied up with climate issues and resource problems in a way that's just impossible to ignore. Number 5. Santa Barbara. If you're interested in what's really going on in the housing market, beyond just the news headlines, you get to Santa Barbara and see those classic red tile roofs, palm tree-lined streets, and the incredible spot where the mountains meet the sea. For decades, it's been sold as a postcard-perfect mix of Mediterranean flair and the California coast. But under all that beauty, the risk situation has been changing. Heavy storms and repeated floods and mudslides in recent years have changed the land itself and the official safety maps. New updated flood zone maps have put more of the area, including parts of nearby Montecito, into higher risk categories than they were before. Luxury homes that once sold for between $2 and $3 million have in some cases seen their prices cut way down to reflect past damage and future risks. Some properties right on the cliffs have actually had the ground shift under them, leading to those scary images of houses moving or needing huge emergency repairs to keep them from collapsing. Insurance companies have certainly noticed what's going on. In certain areas, flood insurance has gotten much more expensive or is simply hard to find. And some private insurers are no longer interested in covering high-risk coastal and hillside properties. Owners might have to choose between raising their homes. Do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to Discover the Nation. We get into the real numbers and the policy shifts, spending a fortune on major protective measures, or just paying much, much higher premiums. Or they're forced to take on more of the risk themselves. Plus, local building and planning rules meant to protect those gorgeous views can make things even more complicated when you want to repair or rebuild. Getting the right permits can take several months, especially when your plans have to go through environmental reviews or deal with protecting a neighbor's view. When you add up this new awareness of the risks, along with rising insurance and building costs and all the local rules, it's really cooled off the market for high-end homes. Of course, Santa Barbara still has its incredible scenery and wonderful lifestyle, but buyers are now looking at properties with a much closer eye on durability, long-term safety, and the real cost of owning a home in a changing world. Number 4. Laguna Beach. So you pull into Laguna Beach, this artsy little coastal town built into steep hillsides and wrapped around beautiful sheltered coves. The views are just spectacular. You've got galleries, cafes, and narrow winding streets that give it a special charm that folks have loved for generations. In 2025, however, plus the climate risks hiding behind the dream home, all to help you protect your future. All right, let's get started. Kicking things off at number 10, Calabasas. The luxury home market here is facing a completely different story. High-end homes that used to sell for well over $3 million are now sitting on the market much longer, and seeing multiple price drops is becoming the new normal. The average time on the market for some of these homes has jumped to over 4 months. which is a clear sign that the old pricing rules just don't apply anymore. The lay of the land is a huge factor. A lot of Laguna Beach is built on slopes and bluffs that have to be watched very carefully. After a good amount of heavy rain, geologists and city officials have reported slope failures and shifting ground in certain parts of town, leading to homes being declared unsafe and needing very expensive repairs to make them stable. These situations make both buyers and insurers a lot more cautious. Insurance companies have started to exclude things like ground movement and other earth-related problems from their standard policies, putting them in a separate category from damage caused by fire or wind. That means homeowners could be paying hefty insurance premiums each year and still be on the hook for huge costs if a hillside slides or foundation issues appear. In response, some community associations have started hiring engineers to study the land and are investing in things like retaining walls. When you drive into Calabasas, you're probably expecting to see a celebrity or two and nothing but perfect luxury. You've got gated communities all over the hills, and those costs are often passed on to homeowners through special fees. Rising sea levels and powerful storm waves have also started to affect beach access and other coastal structures. Stairs and paths that used to be an easy walk down to the sand have had to be closed off or completely rebuilt. Local governments are trying to find that tricky balance between keeping the beaches accessible and making sure everything is safe. And sometimes legal issues pop up because of it. For people looking to buy, Laguna Beach is still one of the most stunning places in California. But with the way things are now, you need to do a lot more homework than the usual home inspection. Soil reports, the fine print in insurance policies, the savings of the Homeowners Association, and the area's hazard history are now essential parts of the decision, not just things to think about later. Number 3, Palo Alto. You arrive in Palo Alto, which has always been seen as the center of Silicon Valley's wealth. For years, pretty ordinary-looking homes on quiet streets sold for unbelievable amounts of money, simply because they were near the big tech companies and great schools. But for the very expensive homes, that whole situation has shifted. Houses listed for $4 million and up are now getting their prices cut significantly from what sellers were asking during the pandemic. Guard shacks and palm trees line the streets, and it feels like every house has a great view, a pool, or even both. For a long time, overall, fewer of these super high-end homes are being sold, and some properties are sitting on the market for much longer than owners or their agents would like. You see, a few different things are happening. The big tech companies have been going through some major reorganizing and letting people go. A lot of those jobs have either moved to other areas or have become permanent work-from-home positions. That's really shrunk the number of buyers who need to live just a short commute away from those big tech campuses. At the same time, the option to work remotely has let some families move to more affordable towns while keeping their same salaries. On top of that, property taxes on these expensive homes in Palo Alto are still quite high. And insurance costs have gone up because of new assessments for earthquake and fire risks. When buyers add up the total yearly cost to own, thinking about taxes, insurance, and all the updates these older homes need, that big sticker price starts to look a little different. Getting things done can also take a long time. Stories about waiting forever for renovation permits are everywhere. Projects that would be pretty simple in other towns can get tied up in a whole lot of reviews here. This area was the very symbol of Southern California wealth and success. Back in 2021 and 2022, a lot of homes here were listed for way over $4 million. Particularly if you're making structural changes, adding on, or doing anything that might change the neighborhood's character. Now, this doesn't mean Palo Alto is cheap, or that nobody wants to live there. It just means the old belief that home values would always go up is getting a second look. The luxury market here is finding out that even in a place with great jobs and fantastic schools, buyers have their limits when it comes to price, hassle, and risk. Okay, number 2, Palos Verdes. So you get to Palos Verdes. It's been considered one of the most exclusive parts of the Southern California coastline for ages. For many years, lovely but modest homes on those winding cliffside roads have sold for an absolute fortune, simply because of their amazing ocean views and being close to LA jobs and top-rated schools. But that trend is starting to change. In the high-end market, homes once listed for $4 million and up are now seeing price drops from their pandemic-era peaks. All in all, the market for those really expensive homes has slowed down, and some of these properties are sitting on the market much longer than anyone expected. These days, you can find some of those same places marked down into the low $2 million range, or even less. But still, there are a few factors at play across the whole Los Angeles area. Big employers in entertainment, tech, and other professional fields have been shaking things up. More jobs now let people work from home part-time or even full-time, which means fewer buyers feel they absolutely have to live on the peninsula. At the same time, a lot of higher-income families have figured out they can move further inland or even to another state, slash their housing costs, and still earn the same great income. The ongoing costs to maintain an expensive home in Palos Verdes are still really significant. Property taxes on multi-million-dollar houses are no joke, and insurance rates have climbed as companies take a harder look at earthquake risk, wildfire danger, and coastal erosion. When potential buyers really start to crunch the numbers on the total annual cost of ownership, with the taxes and insurance, plus the constant upkeep for older or custom-built homes, that initial price tag tells a different story. Getting permits and dealing with regulations in this coastal area can also drag on forever. You hear all kinds of stories about how long it takes to get remodels approved, especially for any work that involves foundations near the bluffs or might change the views. They're just sitting on the market. The latest numbers show that luxury homes in the Calabasas area are taking well over 100 days to sell, or alters the home's appearance in a way that could affect the neighborhood's vibe. Renovations that would be a breeze elsewhere can get stuck in review after review here. Now, this doesn't mean that insurance has gotten cheap, or that people have stopped wanting to buy. What it does mean is that the old assumption that home values would just keep climbing on their own is being seriously questioned. The high-end market on the peninsula is finding out that even in communities with breathtaking views, great schools, and plenty of jobs nearby, buyers still have a bottom line when it comes to the price, the buying process, and the long-term risks. And at number 1, we have Los Angeles. We're wrapping up our tour in the greater LA area, known for its hillside views, palm-lined streets, and sprawling neighborhoods that have long been home to some of the biggest and most diverse luxury markets in the nation. But in 2025, some parts of that picture are starting to look a little stressed. In quite a few of these upscale neighborhoods, homes that used to sell for between $3 and $5 million are now listed for a whole lot less. Yet they're sitting on the market for a long time. Some houses have been for sale for 200 days or even longer without a deal, even after price cuts, and in some cases, a lot longer than that. That's a huge change from just a few years ago, when these homes were selling like hotcakes. There's a term some local real estate pros are using on the quiet: idle inventory. These are homes that aren't in foreclosure or anything. They're simply stuck. And there are a few different reasons for this slowdown. Worries about neighborhood safety and the quality of public services are making buyers think twice about where they want to settle down for the long haul. News about the growing fire risk in the hills and canyons has insurance companies rethinking their coverage, and in some cases, they're dropping or refusing to renew policies, especially for older houses that are hard to get to. New homeowners are getting insurance quotes that would have seemed unbelievable just a decade ago. On top of that, many of the area's high-end developments have homeowners associations that take care of things like roads, security, and shared perks like pools or clubhouses. And when bad weather or landslides damage that private property, those associations can hit homeowners with special fees that can cost thousands of dollars for each family. Arguments over who's responsible and who has to pay can even end up in court, which just adds another headache to the mix. The history of the land itself matters too. Some of these properties are built on land that was once used for industrial purposes. Its 6-car garage is gleaming, and the stone entryway looks straight out of a magazine. But the driveway's empty, and it's been on the market for months. A big reason for this is insurance. Parts of this area are in high-risk wildfire zones and close to places with growing flood and storm runoff problems, or has old utility lines, or sits on tricky ground. So when buyers find out about problems like contaminated soil, aging pipeline rights-of-way, or unstable hillsides late in the game, it can cause them to renegotiate the deal or just walk away. And in these high-end markets, word about things like that gets around fast. Los Angeles has always promised a life of glamour and opportunity, and in a lot of ways, it still does. But its luxury housing market in 2025 is also showing a bigger shift that's happening all over California. Things like insurance troubles, climate risks, the cost of keeping things running, and what people are looking for in a home are all changing the game for high-end property owners. So, you've just toured some of the most watched luxury markets in the state, places where $1 million price cut doesn't always mean you're getting a safe or valuable deal. Those price drops might look great on paper, but once you factor in the risk of landslides, the danger from fires, insurance limits, HOA dues, and all the red tape, the real cost of owning that home becomes a lot clearer. So before you fall in love with that marble kitchen or that gorgeous hillside pool, you have to ask yourself if the long-term risks really fit your budget and your life. Over the past few years, let us know in the comments which city surprised you the most, or feel free to share a story of your own, finding your way in a high-end market. If this inside look helped you see beyond the pretty photos, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this video with anyone who's dreaming of a gorgeous California home. And make sure to subscribe to Discover the Nation so you don't miss a single one of our adventures. A lot of the big insurance companies have either stopped writing new policies in risky parts of California, or they've made their rules much stricter. Folks looking to buy in Calabasas are saying they have fewer insurance choices, higher prices, and tougher requirements. Sometimes, they're even told to cover some of the risk themselves, or depend on a very basic, last-ditch policy. Now, for someone thinking of buying, that means it's not just about a bigger monthly payment. It makes you ask a really important question. If a wildfire or a big storm hits and damages this house, how much of that repair bill is actually going to be covered? The banks are asking that same question before they'll approve a loan. On top of that, the HOA fees in a lot of these gated communities are still pretty steep, and the rules can be tough. Things like making changes to the outside, your landscaping, or even the color you paint your house are often strictly controlled. So what you have is a strange situation. From the outside, Calabasas still looks like it offers that picture-perfect lifestyle. This is the reality in California in 2025, where the prices on luxury homes aren't just dropping a bit, but underneath it all, the mix of high insurance bills, tougher risk checks, and expensive maintenance is really changing the game. That's shrinking the number of buyers who are ready to sign up for a multi-million-dollar commitment. If this is just the beginning of a bigger change in Southern California's luxury market, it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on. Would you really buy that kind of property if you weren't even sure you could get it insured? Number 9, Beverly Hills. You come down from the Ridgeline and you're in Beverly Hills, a name that's meant wealth and class for generations. We're talking beautiful tree-lined streets, famous shopping areas, and huge homes that have made it one of the most well-known luxury spots on the planet. And yet, even here, the numbers are starting to look different. Since the last market peak, the median prices for the fanciest homes in Beverly Hills have dropped quite a bit. Houses that used to easily go for $6.5 million can sometimes now be found with an asking price closer to the mid-$3 million range. And even then, they might just sit on the market. This isn't just about how a place looks. It's about the real cost of owning these properties. The annual property taxes on these high-end homes often run into the tens of thousands of dollars. They're being completely reevaluated based on new risks, insurance headaches, and upkeep costs. Things that seemed unbelievable just a few years back. Upkeep for these large houses with established landscaping, pools, and older systems can add another huge expense. On top of the mortgage, you've got utility bills, staff, security, and homeowners' dues for certain private streets all piling up. For some owners, the monthly cost to just maintain the property is more than what many families across the country pay for their entire house. Insurance has become another big source of stress. The risk of wildfires in the hills and canyons has led to higher premiums, and insurance companies being much pickier. Some homes, depending on where they're located and how they were built, have seen their insurance costs jump way up, or have found that their coverage options are much more limited. When potential buyers calculate those costs over 10 or 15 years, a lot of them start to second-guess how much house they really want to take on. At the same time, new policies and local rules have made it much harder to use a home as a short-term rental, which gets rid of a source of income that some potential buyers were counting on. Tough permit rules and expensive fees for even fairly simple renovations make any plan to update an older property a real headache. The bottom line is, you have a neighborhood where the name still means a lot. In today's video, we're going to walk you through 10 cities where fancy homes that used to sell for $2 or $3 million are now listed for much, much less. But the number of buyers who can truly afford the full cost of ownership and are willing to deal with the risks is a lot smaller than it was when interest rates were incredibly low. Beverly Hills hasn't lost what makes it special, but its luxury market is being forced to get used to a new normal. Number 8. Malibu. You drive along the Pacific Coast Highway into Malibu, where you see homes sitting on cliffs over the ocean or right on the sand. For decades, this part of the coast was the ultimate symbol of Southern California living. In 2025, it has become one of the best examples of how climate risks and insurance issues can completely change even the most sought-after markets. During the last housing boom, it wasn't strange to see beachfront homes selling for $7 million or more. Today, some of those same properties have had their prices slashed, but they're still for sale. One big reason is erosion. Rising sea levels, strong winter storms, and the changing coastline have started to eat away at the shore. Properties that used to have a nice buffer of sand between the deck and the water now see that line getting uncomfortably close. But even so, a lot of them just can't find a buyer. And let me tell you, these aren't simple bargains. Getting insurance has changed right along with it. In the last few years, many private insurance companies have started to pull back from these high-risk coastal areas, especially in spots where you've got a triple threat of wildfires, landslides, and floods. Homeowners who used to rely on a mix of private insurance are now finding themselves pushed into state-run or specialty plans that can cost tens of thousands of dollars a year and still leave big gaps in coverage. Getting flood insurance is often a separate deal, and the terms aren't always great. On top of that, new government risk maps have put even more of Malibu into higher risk zones, which affects both insurance rates and getting a loan. For anyone thinking about a multi-million-dollar home here, figuring out what's covered and what's not has become every bit as important as the ocean view. Lenders often require certain levels of coverage just to approve a mortgage, and if you can't meet those demands at a price that makes sense, the deal just stops in its tracks. These real-world and financial pressures are changing how people behave. Some folks who've lived there for ages are quietly selling and moving farther inland or to different states altogether. The complicated properties with some serious hidden problems. We'll be looking at places where homeowner association rules are clashing with soaring expenses. Others are staying, but they're pouring serious money into protective measures, from building seawalls to shoring up hillsides, which all need their own permits and constant upkeep. Malibu is still absolutely stunning to look at, but it's not just a simple story of rising home prices anymore. It's become a textbook case of what happens when the cost to protect a property starts to compete with the cost of the property itself. Number 7 is San Francisco. You drive across the bridge into San Francisco, a city that for years seemed like a guaranteed way to build wealth in real estate, if you could just buy and hold. Back in 2021, classic homes in the city's best neighborhoods were going for prices that seemed impossible for most people. By 2025, that story has completely flipped. Reports are showing that median prices for some of those historic single-family homes have dropped way down from their pandemic highs, with some properties now on the market for around, or even below, the $1 million mark after selling for more than double that not long ago. In a few surprising cases, homes have had their prices cut several times and have still had trouble getting any serious offers. So why is this happening? The true cost of owning a home in San Francisco goes way beyond the initial purchase price. And where new wildfire and flood maps are changing what it means to be safe living near the coast. Yearly property taxes on a home valued in the multi-millions can add up to a very significant bill. Insurance premiums have shot up as companies now have to account for earthquake risks, aging city infrastructure, and regional wildfire dangers. Some policies don't even cover major disasters, or they have massive deductibles, leaving homeowners on the hook for most of the potential loss. At the same time, the realities of daily life are really weighing on buyers' minds. You hear the reports about property crime, worries about safety in some of the main commercial areas, and the visible challenges of the homeless situation are all influencing how and where people decide they want to live. Even in the traditionally wealthy neighborhoods, an increase in break-ins or slower emergency response times can really affect how people feel about a property's value. The city's red tape adds another layer of headaches. Strict preservation laws, planning requirements, and detailed building codes mean that making any changes to an older home can cost a fortune and take forever. Homeowners who are hoping to do a quick renovation or build an addition can find themselves stuck in a long, drawn-out review process. All of this creates a market where the entry prices are lower than they were at the peak. We'll also see where some homeowners are finding out that getting insurance at all is no longer a sure thing. As we go, but the overall commitment is still huge, and the road to increasing your home's value is a lot more complicated. For some buyers, that looks like a real opportunity. For others, buying a home in San Francisco in 2025 feels less like a sure thing and more like a high-stakes, long-term gamble. Long-term gamble. At number 6, we have, for many years, beautiful high-end homes tucked away in vineyards or overlooking the hills were a special kind of California dream, tied to both a great lifestyle and farming. Listings for homes priced over $2 million have dropped, both in how many are for sale and in their asking prices from what they used to be. In fact, grand estate homes that once easily sold for over $3 million are back on the market now for much less. And they can still take many, many months to find a buyer. The risk of wildfires is a huge part of this shift. State fire maps now label large parts of Napa County as high or very high threat zones, which reflects the recent bad fire seasons and the ongoing patterns of dry brush and weather. Naturally, insurance premiums in these areas have shot up, with some homeowners saying they pay well into 5 figures a year for full coverage.